Good evening and thanks everyone for joining this our next exciting session. Today we have Jay Jha and Krishna Dubla. They both are Sitecore developer, and today the topic is beginner guide to Sitecore Search, key features and best practices. So over to Krishna.
Yes, hello everyone. Thank you for the introduction, Arjun. Yes, so this session is a beginner's guide to Sitecore Search. It is for someone who's just coming into Sitecore Search, has just started using it and doesn't know where to start or understand from a developer's perspective how to start using it. So our agenda for today is a brief introduction about myself and Jaya, and then we have divided it into two parts. So the first two parts, the overview of Sitecore Search and CEC dashboard, and where do I even start, which is like a small setup guide for us as developers in the real world when you're starting to use Sitecore. I'll cover those 2 points, and then there are more advanced topics that Jaya will cover, which is understanding what checkpoints to consider, how to set up a multi-locale facets, or how to debug during your document extractor code if you have issues with source setup, all those kind of tips and tricks that you kind of don't get in your formal documentation. So we're going to cover that in today's session. And then we'll end up with some question and answers where you can ask any questions you've got. Just a PSA, by the way, that due to both mine and Jaya's organizational restrictions, we are not able to provide any live demos because we have CEC dashboards for the clients and we don't want to share the client data or client content. But we have taken utmost care in providing good quality screenshots, and we'll take you through them. So just bear in mind about that. So going forward, I'm going to do a formal introduction of myself. So I'm Karishma Jutla. I'm the technical director at Hugo & Cat, which is a digital customer experience agency. We are part of the IPG network and the Future brand group of companies. We are based in London, UK, and I am a Sitecore certified developer, and recently, I think a few months ago, passed my XM Cloud certification as well. I've worked with Sitecore. I've got an experience of 5+ years with Sitecore technologies. That includes CDP, Personalize, Sitecore, obviously XM, XP Cloud, XM Cloud as well. Before that, I was a .NET developer. And we have implemented Sitecore Search in production for 2 clients now. So I think I've got a little bit experience to give you guys a bit of an insight into how Sitecore Search works, hence this presentation. Now over to you, Jaya.
Jay, you're on mute.
Thank you, Karishma, and thank you, Arjun, for giving us the opportunity to present our knowledge, what we gain through our work. I am Jaya Jha, and I am lead software engineer in EPAM systems, and I am also XM Cloud certified and as well as Sitecore 10 and 8.2 certified. Recently, I have completed my Sitecore Content Hub certification as well. I am working with the Sitecore, I think, from 10+ years now, and I work with the various version of the Sitecore starting from 7.2, and I work with the Helix platform as well, and now I'm working with XM Cloud and Sitecore Search, and I'm contributing to the community through my blog post where I mostly write the challenges which I face during my work through the blog post and use cases. So you can go through my blog post into the Medium, even in LinkedIn, and check that one. And through this session, we are going to share that knowledge which as a beginner when you start and what are the difficulties you're going to face. So when you go through our slides, I think it will be more clear to you guys. Thank you. Over to you, Karishma.
Thanks, Jaya. Right, so let's start with Sitecore Search. So what is Sitecore Search? So it's an AI-based tool, similar to Algolia or Bing if you have used it in the past. And it was announced during Sitecore Symposium, I think the later part of 2022. And it's one of the latest products of the Sitecore DXP offering. Within Sitecore Search, you can ingest data in various forms, collect it, index it, and provide the users with better use experience on the site search. Whether it's recommending you may also be interested in something, or boosting certain results. Like example, we had one of our client examples I'd give you, that we have people profile and we wanted to boost someone whose expertise is in JavaScript, for example. So we very easily, without having to code a lot, we could set that boosting rule up based on their expertise tags and bring the lead developers on top of the profile and featuring them as lead developers on the website. So things like that is very easy to set up on Sitecore Search. It also has a visitor-driven events API, which collects what your users are searching for, and based, using machine learning based on this information, it gives you more suggestions as to you may be also interested in this, or other people search for this. So if you go on Amazon, it's like if you search for coffee, people are interested in filter coffee or cappuccino cups or espresso cups and stuff like that. So search is able to provide you with this user experience. So let's go to the next part. Now, Sitecore Search is a fully based SaaS-based solution, so you don't have to worry about setting up infrastructure. You just get given the login for it, and you can plug and play, essentially. So it's divided into three major pillars, as Sitecore calls it, or three major parts. First is your customer engagement console, the CEC dashboard, which is basically your control hub. This is where you log in, you set up your sources, you index them, you look through your content collection, you set up rules on how you want to display those results, you can do debugging, you can then set up features and filters and facets. So basically your control area is your CEC dashboard. And then there are the two API service. It's a REST-based API service. One's called Site Search and Recommendation Service, which is what you'd be like the default one that you'll be using to get the search results or the recommendation results. And then there is the event service, which is basically a collecting API, which will take your visitor interaction and feed it into Sitecore so that it can use machine learning algorithms to provide better search results for your front-end users. Now, for a few things to note here on this slide is CEC dashboard. It's a public URL, so I've provided you with the URL, so you can go on it. However, you need a login for it. So that you will be needing your Sitecore representative of your company to give you a login. When we started, we just asked for a sandbox environment, and they were more than happy to provide that for us before even any client projects were signed off. So that gave us a good kind of experience to take a look and feel around the Sitecore CEC dashboard and understand the concepts and really, read the documentation. So contact your Sitecore representative and say you want a sandbox environment, and they'll be more than happy to provide you that. Now, in order to access all the modules on the CEC dashboard, being developers, we need to ensure that all our accounts are assigned the tech admin role and not just the admin role, because you would want to set up sources, domain feature configurations and stuff like that, which is only available under tech admin role. So when you do contact, make sure you have the tech admin role. Also, if you have your team of developers who you're going to give access to, make sure they also have tech admin role, because then they can go and play around on the API Explorer and features like that. Third part that we'll be covering in detail in this presentation is also download and install the Sitecore Search Starter Kit. So this is a starter kit provided by Sitecore itself on their GitHub platform. And this is brilliant. It's where you actually get to understand how a solution is going to interact with the CEC dashboard and what mandatory fields you need to understand and know in order to set your main application up. So start playing around with the Sitecore SDK starter kit. Next part is the setup guide. So where do I even start? So from personal experience, when I got given CEC dashboard, when I got given CEC dashboard login, I went on it and I was completely clueless because it's like you're given a lot of documentation, you're given like few videos to start and you just go in blindly. So I thought if I was going in again, what is it that I need to know? The basic parts where I just quickly plug and play and understand the concept. So this is what I want to kind of convey to you guys if you're beginners into Sitecore Search as well. So there are three parts to it. How I've divided is one, you always need to configure a source. Source is basically your indexing platform. You index various documents, index various websites to create documents. Then you install your SDK, so that's your, your plug and play React application, which is your starter kit, and then you understand how to get API access to those APIs that we're going to use within your application. So in this case, it will be your SDK. So how do you take that API application access information? And also because you are in your developer environment, exactly, essentially. So it's not going to be like suddenly you're in production and you've got the API and you've plugged it and everything's working. So you need to have environment specific variables. So how you would set that up. So we'll go through that in this presentation. Let's start with configuring the source. So source, as I mentioned, are your index documents. You can have various types of source. So your best example is Sitecore.com itself. So on Sitecore.com, if you search for something, you'll see that results are coming back from the knowledge base, the Stack Exchange, the main website, or even their developer documentation. So these are the sources that they have configured on their CEC dashboard. So when you go and search for example, a Sitecore Connect or a Sitecore Search itself, you'll get various type of sources, documentation, and results returned. So similarly, we'll configure a source, a single source, which will be your main website, and then you can start playing around with more detailed and complex search experiences. So how do you start? You start with logging into your CEC dashboard. You'll have a left-hand column menu bar, and within there is an icon to say that says sources. You go into sources, you add a source, and you could give it whatever name. In the screenshot you can see I've given some test source and a relevant description, and the connector I'm using is a web crawler connector. So now there are different types of connector as well. There is a web crawler, there is an advanced web crawler, API crawler, API push and feed crawler, where if you want to like take a feed from a CSV or a JSON file, you can create that as well. For our demo purposes, we are going to use the web crawler, which is the advanced one. Now a tip at this stage, like I mentioned previously, is you'll have different environments, right? So what we have done on our projects is we have created a source for each website, because we are only taking the main website as our source. We don't have any other like RSS feeds or anything like that. So it's just the main website. So we decided to have 3 different sources: QA, UAT, and production. So production is on its own production organization, while QA and UAT is in sandbox client, sandbox organization. Each of them have respective source IDs. And these source IDs is what we then configure in our environment variables that get interchanged based on the deployment of the environment that you're going for. So that's very seamless. You only write one code. You don't have to keep switching sources based on which environment. It becomes just one code and interchangeable source ID that are set up during the deployment CI/CD pipeline. Then within the configuration of that source itself, there are various sections. Then this is the second section. So you've obviously given it a name. Now you have to give the web crawler settings. So in here you give like your domain that you're going to that you're going to crawl. So that would be, for us, was our main website. You can set up max depth, as in how deep do you want to go into the crawl session, max URL as well. So we have quite a mature website with like thousands and thousands of pages, which we want all of it to be indexed and shown to the client with the results. So that's why you can see there's like, I think 100,000 max URL we have set up there. Then you have exclusion patterns in there as well. So obviously you don't want your search results to send irrelevant data like error pages or account sections. So you can have exclusion patterns. For basic exclusion pattern, we have used URL. So we have basically said anything under account or under errors, exclude them from your crawling. And a tip at this point would be that we were hosting, for one of our clients, we were hosting the site on Vercel. So obviously the production is publicly available, so Vercel can crawl it. But the lower environments like QA and UAT were password protected. So only if you had a Vercel account or if you have the password, you can actually go and view the website. Obviously the crawler won't have that, you can't enter a password at the crawler setup itself. So there are two things you need to set up. One is the two header keys you need to set up. One is the user agent, which is your Sitecore bot. And secondly is a Vercel protection bypass key that is available on your Vercel configuration settings. So you just copy paste that into here, and that will enable your crawler to successfully crawl your locked websites. Then you do configure a trigger. So what are triggers? So these are the entry points for your crawler, so it can locate the content that you want to index. So when you crawl, this will be where it starts from. So it's mostly, there are various types of crawlers as well. Like there is a sitemap crawler, RSS, JS triggers, and a request. But based on our experience, we found that the sitemap trigger was the best one, because you can control what areas of the site you want the search to crawl. So this is where we set that up. You from the trigger type, you select sitemap as an option. You set up your sitemap URL. And another tip here is, if you have used Vercel and bypass protection in the previous setup of the headers, here as well, you have to add it as your bypass key as a query string. So something to keep in mind around setting up your sitemap trigger. Then comes the document extractor. So this is where you tell your source that this is my page, this is the information I want to collect from the page and index it so that search can use that information to then give me relevant result. So this is where I got very confused as to what do I use, how do I, you get lots of document on Sitecore, and even on the videos they talk about set of attributes and this and that, and it clouds your mind a lot. So to make a more streamlined approach when you're a beginner, I would suggest start with this sample code that I've provided on the screen. It gives you simple information that anyway your website will have. So like stuff like description, name, URL, image URL, and then the main part of it is the body. So what it does, it crawls through the whole HTML body and uses that to create your index documents. Another thing I forgot to mention earlier is there are different types of JS extractors as well. So there is like an XPath different types of extractors. So there's the XPath, there's the CSS, and then there is the JS extractor. So we have been using JS extractor because it's much more easier to set up your code, and as your requirements becomes bigger and bigger, you can just come into the JS code and add another attribute that you want to collect from your HTML pages or your website pages. So you start with the body. So what it does is it will just scroll through the whole page and keep that information ready when your user searches for it. The tip at this section would be that as you get more confident with Sitecore Search and understand how things are working, you can then go ahead and create more complex attributes. with things like array of strings. So this is where you have keywords. So like I told you about that example about expertise tags. So we had expertise tags as expert in JavaScript or C# or React technologies. So those kind of tags you can add against a person's profile, expose them as keyword tags, extract them so that it's against the index document. So then Sitecore can use them to create, to bring back those relevant results. And the code there, what it does is the keyword tags, we just expose them as a CSV field. So it just splits it on that comma and stores it as an array of string. So that's the tip you can use. I'll go to the next section. Okay, so in the previous section, this is all you need to do to configure your sources. You've done that, you save it, you publish it, and then you start your first crawl of the website. Now, if you are a very lucky person, it will run successfully in the first instance itself. But as we all know, with Sitecore development, it's never first pass. So you'll have some errors, but don't worry. We have some slides in this presentation deck that Jaya will take you through, which will show you how to debug those errors that you might get during your source scan. So yeah, just be mindful of that. Now you've set up your source, you've got some content ready in Sitecore Search. Now you want to use that content into your application to show the results to your users or to show the results to yourself. Obviously, you're playing around with Sitecore right now. So the first part is setting up the API access. The API access information is available on the CEC dashboard. It's against your organization itself, and it will differ based on the organization you're on. There are three main parts to it. One is the customer key, the API key, and the API hosts. So customer key always remains the same. For any kind of applications you'll use that custom key that's there on the page. Then the API keys, by default, you get given one with the event and discover REST API services already enabled. So you can just start using that as well. But say you have another application where you just want to show search and recommendation services, which is the Discover API, but not send any visitor information back to search. So you don't want to use events API. So you can create your new API key using that add API key button and just disable events one, and you only use that for discover purposes. So you have the options to do that. And then within the API host, you've got only need to worry if you're using SDK and Next.js application using the SDK, you only need to worry about Discover and Events API. So copy that and use it in your environment variables. But if you're doing it from scratch, so one of our other projects is in MVC with basic HTML, CSS, JavaScript. It's quite old Sitecore 9.3 version. So there we couldn't use the Next.js SDK or a React SDK. So our front-end devs created their own utility functions for authentication and stuff as well. So they had to use those authentication API hosts. So just be aware of, based on your use case, you have the information available in this section of the API access. So you've got these three information, keep it ready, and then you go to the next phase, which is you install your Search SDK starter kit, which helps you understand what you will require while you're setting up your new application or your Next.js application or any application that's going to use this Sitecore Search. So this gives you like an insight into what's required to use Sitecore Search efficiently. Now, key points to pay attention to is, first is you need an environment variable file, so the .env file, if you're using Next.js. If you're using like traditional .NET or anything, you'll need your config files in that case, or app setting file. So in there, in the Search SDK, you have a value for vday search environment attribute. However, this depends on your organization setup. The search environment attribute gets, I think there are 3 or 4 expected values. One is prod, staging, prod EU, and then APSE2. Now, when I was starting to just explore, I thought I'm using a test, test sandbox environment. It should be staging. So I started using staging and nothing was working. So that's when I contacted Sitecore support. And they said, oh, actually, no, it's against your environment, whatever it's set up, you need to use that search environment. So we found out that our client was set up on prod EU. So make sure that you're using the right environment search ENV here. Sorry, Rajesh, did you have a question?
No.
Okay. Sorry. Yes, make sure that you use the right value here, and again, verify it with your Sitecore rep, whoever is setting up the account for you. And secondly, 2 things that you need to configure. Now, blindly just configure it because the search SDK requires this. You'll understand it as you go through like the demo site or as you go through the code base, why these are required. But just go into, I've given you a path here. So you go into CEC, domain setting, feature configuration. Go into search suggestion blocks and set up this title context aware. So we have a screenshot here on what you need to set up. So you have some kind of analyzers, which are your machine learning algorithms that basically create your search results. And then you also set up your sorting options, which is basic featured descending and featured ascending. Again, very simple setup. You select algorithmic sorting, and based on your title, it's either ascending or descending. So set these up and you're ready to go. Then go to the next slide. Obviously, you've set up yours SDK environment variables and any kind of CEC configuration, and then you run npm run dev in your tools, and it will open a localhost website with the port that they have configured. And if you start searching now, you'll get a basic search box there. You don't need to start doing any coding. You just run npm run dev, and you'd get your local host with your search box, and you start searching for things that are relevant to the source that you have earlier configured. So say you're using a you have your source as your McDonald's website. So make sure what you can do is search for, say, Mekalutiki, that you know it's not there on any other website, and it will come back as a result because you know that's the source you have configured. Now, Sitecore SDK also has provided like a demo site, which I've linked here. So I'll go on that. And you can see that this Sitecore Search demo site is using the SDK. So if I search for something like Sitecore Connect, it's starting to return results. I enter something and I'm getting this result. So this is like people also ask. So this is your AI-based recommendation service. Then you have these actual search results. You have the 2 types of facets and filter options available on the left-hand side. You have the results here. And do you remember how I said set up the sorting options, which is featured and featured ascending? So featured ascending and featured descending, this is where it will be used. Obviously, there are other options here as well, but for SDK purposes, we'll only have these 2 available. So you can view your demo site as well as your local host site and start playing around with it. So key points to pay attention to here is these network tab. If you go into the network tab in the developer tools, so let me see, and then do a Sitecore search, you'll see there are these requests that have gone out, so publish, and there is a number here. So what these mean, so publish requests are going to the events API. So if I go into publish and look at the request URL, you can see it's going to the events API. And the 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever you're seeing, that's the account number. Sorry, that's the account number, and it's going to your search and recommendation discover API, and this is the one that's actually sending your key phrase to Sitecore Search, and then the response, if you see, it will show you the response that has come back from the page. So you can start exploring your search request payload and the response that comes back through here. Next thing, yep. Another thing to notice here is from that account number API, so your Discover API, request payload, you can right click the copy object and copy the object, and you can paste it into your Notepad++ or your, there is another feature on Sitecore Search that Jaya will take you through, which is API Explorer, and then copy that object into there and just explore what that request looks like, what fields look like they're mandatory, and what information you need to show. For example, in this section, I've got a query and key phrase. So when I search for Sitecore, that's my key phrase and what kind of results are coming back. So you can explore items like these or fields like these for your purposes. Now, one thing to notice at this stage is the RFK ID in your object. So RFK ID refer to your widget ID on Sitecore Search. So what are widgets on Sitecore Search? Widgets are like these tools that return relevant results based on your requirement. So what does that mean? So there are there are actually 5 or 6 default widgets that Sitecore has provided, but we are more interested in these 2 major ones, which is the RFK ID 6 and RFK ID 7. So which is the preview search and the search results page. So when you are entering something in this search box, let's say hello, and if you notice your payload, it will be going to your RFK ID 6, is because that's the preview search widget request that we are going to use for our search bars. But if I then have, I think I did press enter. Yeah, and I pressed enter and I saw showing results for hello world. That means it's going to the next widget, which is the search results page. Hence, I'm getting this 8 results that come back. So if I go on the next one in their list, it has actually gone to the RFK ID 7. So it's gone to the search results page widget and brought back that result. So you can configure widgets, create new widgets for your own use case scenario. So we have a component on our client website which brings back all the latest blogs. So we have created a widget for that, and it brings back all the latest blogs based on the tags and stuff like that. And within the widgets, these are more advanced concepts and we are not covering at this stage, but the advanced concepts, what you can do in that widget is, so you want to feature a particular author on that component, so you can within the widget boost certain results by the page author's name and stuff like that. So widgets are going to be a powerful tool that you'll use, but just kind of a foundational knowledge that you need them to perform a certain function for your component. So search bar, use the preview search widget. For your search results component, use the search results page, which is the RFK ID 7 widget. And then off you go and you start exploring according to your use cases. It's quite easy to get around it. So as I said, I'm originally a .NET developer, so I'm a backend developer, and the SDK is all written in TypeScript. So this is where I worked with my front-end lead, and he explored the code base and understood the search queries, and I worked with him on creating those search queries, playing around on API Explorer, understanding what results come back. And based on this interaction, we could then go back to our UX and client design team to tell them what is possible with Sitecore Search, and accordingly they design the components for the client website. So similarly, if you are a full stack developer and understand TypeScript really well, you can just go ahead and read through the code and understand the code, or take help from your front-end lead or front-end devs and work in tandem in understanding how to set up a component using Sitecore Search. Then this is my last slide, which is around Next.js configuration. So as I said, the SDK uses vday prefix config attributes, but we were using Next.js, which is deployed on Vercel. So we needed environment variables that Vercel could understand, and we could use, set that up in that CI/CD pipeline. So we created our own Sitecore Search environment variables that you are more than welcome to use as well. And they look like this. So it's next public search environment, search customer key, API key, search URL, search event URL, and then, as I mentioned, different source ID for the environment we are deploying to. And this then makes it very seamless because it changes according to your to the environment it's on, and then the query is automatically formed using this information without having to change too much at development stage. And that brings me to the end of my segment, and I'll hand it over to Jaya now. So Jaya.
Thank you, Karishma. Hope now our audience has get some idea about what search is actually CEC dashboard. So now I'm going to take you through the further steps where like when she has shown you how to create a source, right? So when your source fails, when you rebuild that source and it fails, what are the checkpoints? So I'm going through my slides to the important checkpoints which is very helpful your day-to-day work when you are working with the CEC. So here the first slide comes with when your source rebuild fail, what where you check what is your detail error. So Sitecore CEC dashboard having the path which I have shown here. Under the path in your dashboard, this is a screenshot of the particular path which I have written here. So path analytics under sources, you have the overview. You see here the option of sources. Under that there is a overview, and when you go to the overview, you see there are some headers like source name, connectors, and last run. And this, Karishma, go to the next slide.
Oh.
So in this, when you click on the source, you have some certain time steps. Like whenever you run your source, it has certain results. So Sitecore has given you this option here, like you can check at what time your index got failed or success, how many index you is successfully got indexed, how many documents got dropped, how many documents got failed. These are the option you have. So these give you the detailed overview what went wrong and what is correct here. So suppose you are searching for a document which really got indexed or not. This is the place you can come and check whether your document got indexed or not. And in the right hand side, you can see there a column option, right? There are certain columns which you can arrange, like here date, results, reason, and URL option is there. You can add few more option. That side in CEC dashboard, we have that flexibility. And now you see there are some options like visited pages, excluded host page, crawled items, indexed item. This is our day-to-day handy items. Like I wanted to know in a website how many items got crawled. You can directly come and check here, like how many crawled items it has, how many index item it has. And these drop down also, it has a filter, like you have the pagination here. You can select if you have lot more pages to index. You can use this drop down option and the paging option down below, like select 10 results or 5 results to verify your results, what document got indexed. And when it comes to the dropped and failed, here dropped means nothing like when you are using a CMS, some configuration, it depends on your CMS. So in that certain fields are there, which Karishma has shown you into the document extractor. That is nothing but the fields which you add in your CMS on your pages and HTML it reflect, right? That only we are going to extract. So when we have certain fields called important or required, and that is not in your web page, it is available in your HTML, that time it will come in your dropped section. So you can come here and see what your required field got failed. Because of that, your document indexing is failing. And the failed result certainly comes with when you have some HTTP errors, like 404, you don't have access to that file, some 503 access, some error is there. These kind of HTTP code errors will come under fail section. And here I wanted to add a tip like system errors. whenever your sitemap index file, when we use a web advanced crawler, we all generally use our sitemap file of the web page, right? So in that case, when you have a trigger option of sitemap, and in your sitemap itself some issue is there, that sitemap itself is crashed, that time you will not see any relevant error in this console. Your source will fail, but you don't have any error information. So this system error, whenever you have system error counts 1 or 2, you understand that this is not related to your index document, it is related to your index sitemap file, either sitemap file or your maximum document index. Like there is a threshold set from the Sitecore in the backend, like when we are indexing document that is less than 30% and it is failing because of required field or any other error, that time you will see the system error is populating. But unfortunately, as of now, we don't have that relevant message details. This is while you work, then only you encounter. So Karishma, go to the next slide. So this is one of the important point to consider. The next point is when we are creating the source, we should be knowing like what are the option we see when we need to crawl the index. So how we can rebuild the index when we have done some changes into our attribute configuration that I will show you in the next slides. Like what we do with the sources, like so that our latest changes will come into our source, our index file. So this also CEC dashboard, this is the screenshot of the source which I have created like for my demo purpose. So in that, in the right hand side, I have shown some circles. In that circle, and here in a horizontal bar itself, you can see the first option, which is like a refresh kind of thing. It is saying you to recrawl and reindex. So it means whenever you wanted to reindex your source, you have to just use this option. This will do, it will replace your old index and it will bring you the new index file. So suppose in this case your index is failing, that time you don't need to worry about, because there are in backend lot of containers are working for the sources, so your site will not get down for the searches. It will be working still until and unless your first run, last run is not successful. The previous rebuild file of the index document is working on your sites. So this option you use whenever you wanted to re-index something or something you have to update. This option we can use as a scheduler also. You can, there is an option into the source setting. You can run into the schedule basis. Suppose you wanted to run your index every 12 hours or every 24 hours based on your requirements on the project or particular use cases, you can set that scheduler time. So you no need to come, or you no need to depend on a developer or any person who know the CEC dashboard. The next option you see, it says re-index. It means that update the index with the latest attribute configuration. So here attribute configuration means sometimes we have already included in, like Karishma has explained, in the document extractor code, there were some basic fields which were out of box CEC has, Sitecore has provided, but we have a requirement to add some new field, and now I wanted to use that field into my document extractor code. So how can that will be effective into my source? In that case, you have to, whenever you add an attribute, there also it will show you a pop-up message. I have the screenshot later on. It will show you like more, please take care of, it will show you a pop-up which will say that re-index your sources which is related to this. So that time you have to, under domain setting also, you have to publish the thing changes, and here you have to come and do the re-index. So the latest attribute configuration which you wanted to use, it will be visible to your front end side and you can use in your document extractor code. And the third option is for edit, where you can, suppose first you created for your learning purpose, now you wanted to try a schedule option, or you wanted to rename it that purpose, or you wanted to add some other settings. That case, edit function will help you. And the next option is duplicate. And suppose we are working here for the several environments. QA, UAT, and production. For UAT, you have made everything ready. So you don't want to create your source for the production from the scratch. At that, only you have few settings to differ into the production. Suppose authentication or header. These settings are different. In that scenario, you use this duplicate option. Just everything your document extractor code will be same for your UAT or production environment, right? Only your domains and some settings will vary. That case, you can just duplicate it and just replace the settings you wanted to update. The next setting is the next option is archive. Sometimes we I either it is some system configuration error sometime, or sometime we just use some sources for the testing purpose, and later on we don't want to create a large number of sources so that it will be difficult to maintain in the future, right? That time you can use this option archive. So that option, that source will not get deleted from your dashboard. It will be there, but it will be under archive option. Yeah. Karishma, can you go to next slide? So next, what I was talking about, the attribute changes regarding the source build. This is the place under the domain setting. There is a section called attribute. This I wanted to highlight one point. Like earlier, as a Sitecore developer, we worked with the Solar searches extensively, and there we used to map our template fields with a configuration file. So that thing only got replaced here with this attribute configuration GUI they have given us now in CEC. So already there are a lot of out of box fields, but if you have some custom requirement where you wanted to add some new field, you can add. There is an option called add attribute, and you can introduce your new fields. In that case, whatever fields you are going to add here, lot of option you will see. Go to the next slide, Karishma. Yeah. So suppose you have clicked on the add attribute section, then you have several options to consider here. So focus on these 2 points, what I'm saying now, like return in API response. Suppose I have a field, I added a title field, suppose, and I want to use that in my domain, as well as I wanted to use that in my widgets, like facets or filter also I wanted to use. So in that scenario, you have this option of configuration. Like you wanted to see in response that field, then you have to click this checkbox return in response, which is in the screen under the properties section. And if you wanted to use that same field as a facet or filter, then use the first checkbox, which is available for rules and pages and hard filters. So this is associated with the widget section, which Karishma told is advanced things. But here the basic configuration, if you are checking this checkbox, then only in your widget section, if you wanted to add some rule, or you have some certain criteria which you wanted to apply to your container or responses, so this is the place. First you have to enable your attribute here. Until and unless it is not enabled here, you are not going to see into your widget section. And by default, few fields are already enabled, which is like available for quickly is like there is an option in CEC board where you can see what are the fields you wanted to see as a collection data document collection. That case I will show you in the last slide of mine. So here just key points are like, if you are creating an attribute, just make sure that if you wanted to see that attribute into your response, just check this return in API response. If you wanted to see as a facet and filter, just check this checkbox. Karishma, go to the next slide, please. Yeah, so if you have used that particular attribute into your facets and filter, there is an option of feature configuration, and under that there is a facets and filter sorting option. You can come here and verify whether that fields is available here or not. By default, it will be here if you have selected that as a use facet and filter. This is also one of the checkpoint for your facets, filter, any sorting option. Yep, next slide. Now I was talking about when we are doing the attribute configuration about the checkbox where available for rules and hard filters that associated with this point. So most of the scenario when we are a beginner, we just create an attribute and we think like when we write into document extractor code, automatically in our widgets we are going to use it. So this scenario I have faced one time. I have enabled my field here. I have added my field into the attribute section and I was not able to see into my response as well as in my widget. So that time you see there are a lot of options below author, body, all are disabled, right? Because these fields are not these attributes are not used in the widget as of now. If you wanted to use, you have to enable. There is an option of enable and disable here. So make sure that this is an important checkpoint, like you should enable into your widget attribute first, and then you should enable into your widget. Then only you can use into your response or document extractor or your facet filter. Yep, next slide. So this was one of the important, and now this is also like one of the key feature of the XM Cloud and Sitecore since the decade. Like we are working on a multi-local environment, we can work. So CEC dashboard also having the feature of while you have this, your client is having a multi-local sites. So your search will be also associated with the different languages. In that scenario, you have the option to add multiple languages. It supports all the languages, and in CEC dashboard, you have the administration, domain setting, and locally, where you can go and add your language which your client supports. Go to the next slide. So when you click on that edit, you have the option of adding the language, like you select your country and the language and you save here. Next slide. So once you save your language here, I have shown it will show you local setting has been saved. Changes will not be live until they are published. So you have to publish here, and here already it is showing the message like make sure to update the locally under your source configuration too. So this is what I was talking about in terms of attribute. Whether it is a new language you have added here or you change any attribute, you have to go to your particular source and you have to index that one, re-index the second option which I have shown. Then only it will be effective. So suppose I have added into my administration section the languages. Now go to the next slide. So in this section, now I'm coming to my source. This screenshot is particular of your source, which you have configured. And now in your source, when you click on this available locally, and you have to click on edit, in the next slide, you will see that there is option of that two languages which I added into the attribute section. Next slide, please. So when you click on that edit, you can see this two ARAE and DED. These two languages I have added into my attribute section and it is available here. Here I have to save it. As soon as you save it, there will be one more document extractor code will generate, which is request language extractor. There you can write your JS code for your languages. Now next slide, please. So this is the checkpoints for your languages. Like whenever you add your language, just keep in mind that you have to add your language into the domain setting of administration under attributes, and then you go to your particular source and enable that language. Then only you can work with multiple languages and you create your source to work with the other languages. Now this is also one of the important checkpoints. Suppose you wanted to create an attribute which supports other languages. We wanted to show a label for different languages, different labels, right? For that purpose, there, if your CEC dashboard is having a subscription, you have the option to create your all the fields in different languages. Just you have while creating the attribute, you have to take care of this data, this placement. Placement option is nothing but there will be two options, standard and locally. Standard means it will by default English language, but if you select locally, this locally will tell you that it is available in another languages also. I will tell you what is the use of while selecting the locally here. Suppose I have a field which is used in facets and filter and I wanted to use a different languages for that labels. So select here label, go to the next screen. You have selected here locally, then you have to come to your facet if you're using that field as a facet. Next screen. And then under the facets, you have the option of localization. When you click on this localization, you have several fields which is enabled as a locale. You can, there is a text box, you can fill your suppose I have added the D Germany or Arabic. You will be having the column of Germany in Arabic, and you can add your labels according to that. I was not having the relevant screenshot for that's why I have skipped, but after clicking on the localization, it is self-explanatory. Yeah, Karishma, you can go to the next slide. Now comes here the part where she has shown you the document extractor code, but until you don't rebuild it, you don't understand where it fails, right? So we have some Java's that document extractor code is nothing in that we are using JavaScript kind of syntax, which is called Chirayo. And to test this one, we have this sandbox available live where you can test your document extractor code. So you will see the screen here now. It has two parts. One is sample HTML and one is document extractor code. So in samples HTML, suppose you have a static HTML page or your website page. You go do F12 and inspect your HTML code, copy paste this whole HTML code here. And what or document extractor code you have written in your source, come and copy paste here. Just leave the first two lines, like fourth number line you leave it. Under the return statement you write your return things, and after line number 4 you replace all your logic codes document extractor lines, and then run the extractor. You will see just run the extractor here. You will see that from what code you have written in your document extractor, it will return the expected results. So in this case, before rebuilding your index, you will be knowing, okay, your document extractor is running fine for a one page, so definitely for the other pages also it will work fine. So this is kind of your validation point and your debugging point. Like you know your what syntax is failing or something is missing, you can validate here. So this is your handy tool while you're working on search. Can you go to the next screen, please? Yeah, so keep in mind, and now Karishma was explaining about like F12 and we do the copy object. So in CEC dashboard, you can see your response, like what request you are passing, what are the things is there in response, and what parameters you are passing as a request. So in API Explorer, where results can be verified, you can manipulate your data, you can play with this request and see what are the responses it is generating. So this is one of inbuilt in handy tool for you to work with your response and request. Yeah, next slide. And this is the last section of the my slides. Like when you index the sources and you already you see there are a lot of documents got indexed in CEC dashboard, there is an option of content collection, and there are drop downs where you can filter using your source and languages, like what are all the documents got indexed here. So basically this section is to go to point for you, what are your documents got indexed and what are the fields. If you click on any of the documents here, you can see your document extractor fields, which is a mandatory fields, required field in your attribute section. You can see it will be extracted here. And what is the ID of your document, when it is last updated, what is the source name, what locally it has, and what your document is all about. So it is nothing but all your indexed files, what you are going to see into your front end websites. So here this comes to end of my slides. So through these checkpoints, I just wanted to explain, like these all are your important to do point when you are debugging or investigating some errors. First go through these checkpoints. Yep. So thank you everyone. Over to you, Arjun.
Thank you, Karishma. Thank you, Jaya. This is surely will help many of developers who will be stuck in embedding the Sitecore Search in their site. So, anyone, any question? Uh, okay. Yeah, Jatinder, please go ahead. Yeah, Jatinder, please go ahead with your question.
Can't hear you.
Okay. Anyone else having any question? Yeah, Prakash, please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. So if you take Solar, like we can update indexes based on the item published, right? So is there anything similar to the Solar update in Sitecore Search where you can do a real-time update of indexes instead of like configuring a time and based on the time the indexes should appear? So instead of that, can we do a real-time update of indexes?
Yeah, I am going to let Jaya answer that because she has written an excellent blog recently about
Okay.
this on
Yep.
how to update
So yeah,
single
I would like
indexes.
to answer this question. Actually, real-time publishing as of now from Sitecore end, it is not there. So as you know, in XM Cloud, when we publish into the edge environment, it takes little bit of time. So there is a lag of time, right? The similar way when you if your document is not available into your edge document, how it will be published, right? So there are some workaround you can do. You can create a middleware or use ingestion API of the Sitecore Search, and then you write your logic and it will work. You can use your experience edge webhooks, and then only it is possible as of now. But absolutely, actually we discussed with the Sitecore team as well, so they have this in roadmap where they will be updating the document. As soon as you publish, it will get updated. But as of now, you have to write your middleware code and use the ingestion API. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, Jaya, thanks.
Okay, thanks, Jaya. So we have a question from Jitendra. He says, or he asks, does Sitecore Search only provide a content REST API, or does it also offer UI components similar to Cobio?
Yeah, so as of now, it's only through REST APIs that you can ingest the content. There are no UI components. And Sitecore Search support custom language. You can set up a language on Sitecore Search. I don't think we have worked with any custom language as such, but all the default out of the box that are available on Sitecore XM Cloud CMS, those are all available on Sitecore Search as well.
Yeah, they have available almost all the languages. So mostly, I think I work with 26 and more languages. It is there. But always there is an option of raising a support case, and they are doing from the back end. So based on the need, they change the requirement, they add the things.
Any more question? Okay. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Jaya. Uh, Thanks, Krishna, for giving us very valuable information. Thanks, everyone, for
Yeah.
joining the session. We will upload this video as soon as possible on our YouTube channel. If anyone has any questions, or if you got stuck anywhere while in Sitecore Search, then you can contact Jaya and Krishna on LinkedIn. So uh, thanks a lot, everyone, again for joining the session.
Thank you
Thank
all.
you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you.